Welcome to Aspects of Writing with your host, James Kelly. For the next 60 minutes, we'll explore every aspect of writing, including how to create, format, and even sell your work. The phone lines are open at 731-1230. That's 731-1230. Or toll free, 1-866-820-KLAV. Now, let's get writing. Here's your host, James Kelly.
Hello and welcome to Aspects of Writing here on KLAV. I'm your host, James Kelly. On your computer, you can listen to this broadcast live at KLAV1230am.com. We are also broadcasting live on youtube.com/Aspects of Writing, and that's all one word. The topic of today's show is getting your book in the stores, and our guests for today's show are Vicki-Ann, Joyce, Brennan, and Linda Cutler-Smith, along with my co-hosts Janet Coursey and Dana Micheli. Dana, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Vicki-Ann is the author of Through the Door to Dusk and a young adult fiction story, and then she wrote The Queen of It. That is also children's book. Okay. And Joyce Brennan has written several, actually 7 books. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And has currently 3 on the market: The Hidden Journal, Don't Dance on My Heart, and Broken Promises. And Linda Cutler-Smith leads a romantic readers group. She has worked for Borders and Barnes & Noble's bookstores and has held workshops and regional romance conferences. She's a member of the Romance Writers of America and a big supporter of romance genre. I would like to read a few fun facts. We're just going to I did one because we have a lot of people on the show today. Mary Dixon became a pilot at age 50. Francis Chester sailed around the world when he was, 52. He did this alone. Henry J. Heimlich developed his emergency maneuver at the age of 54, and at the same age, Anthony Hopkins received his first Oscar. I think we're getting the theme here. George Burns received his first Oscar when he was 80. Daniel Defoe wrote Robinson Crusoe at the age of 59. John Glenn went to space again when he was 77 years old. The average Nobel Prize winner is 63, and Theodore Mommsen received his Nobel Prize at the age of 85. And I can't get this word here. Anyone know this word?
Telekai Igarashi.
Okay, that's good enough. Climbed Mount Fuji, and the next year turned 100, and then climbed it again. Never give up on your dreams. They are always out there for the reaching, and that's the importance of this fact. If you are just tuning in, you are listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, here on KLAV, along with my co-hosts, Dana Micheli and Janet Coursey. Again, on your computer, you can listen to this broadcast live at KLAV1230am.com. My guests for today's shows are authors Vicki-Ann, Joyce Brennan, and Linda Cutler-Smith. But before we get to know a little more about our guests, let's go over to Jan Coursey for a little segment we call Jan's Corner.
Yay, James.
Hi.
Follow your heart. Jump in head first. Don't be afraid to express yourself. Go ahead and say the words you'll never allow yourself to say in front of anyone, and feel the feelings you never allow yourself to feel in front of anyone. Cry, kick, scratch, love, or just go wild. The beauty of writing is you allow yourself to live the life you would never live otherwise. See things completely different from anyone else. Blue is not blue. Blue is your black. Sorrow becomes the fuel for revenge. A smile in the young man's eye becomes a life and death love story. But then make sure there's a twist. Make sure it's not just a boy meets girl, falls in love, and lives happily ever after. Let the trees in the park go for a walk. Be a superhero, and that's being invisible and being seen at the same time. Yes, like Clark Kent and Superman. Be fearlessly afraid, and then be afraid fearlessly. Dig deep. You know you can. Stand on a high cliff in your mind. Close your eyes and then jump. Then soar through the canyons of your mind and find that special story you want to write, and then begin. One word at a time, give your readers that insight into your dream. And like James says at the end of every show, if you can dream it, you can write it. Do it, even if it's just for healing and stress relief, as writing is for so many of us. Do it as a hobby, if for no one else or for nothing else but your own entertainment. But then don't be surprised once you've finished that you have a book that everyone will want to read.
All right. Thank you, Jan. Our first guest is Vicki-Ann. Again, Vicki is the author of Through the Door to Dusk, a young adult fiction, and The Queen of It, as well as 5 others. What inspired you to become a writer, Vicki?
I'm from back east New York, and when I was 13, there was a citywide contest with the schools. We had to write a book. We had to construct the book, sew it, put it together. I mean, we went from soup to nuts. And during the process, I fell in love, just the whole aspect of writing and books itself, and I just kept writing after that. But I would put stuff away. I wouldn't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm. And Jan, do you have a question for her?
Yeah, how did you decide on young adult fiction?
I started off with children's stories. And my first young adult was actually my publisher wanted to move into ebooks. And she asked if I would consider writing a short story. Well, I just got the inspiration. I used to live up by Sunrise Mountain, and I was looking at the mountain, and I got the inspiration for the story, and it just came to me. From that, it was a trilogy. So I did the first one, which is Through the Door to Dusk, and then the other two followed.
Okay.
So I felt like, I don't know, I just felt at home with writing the young adult. And so I moved away from the children's books and then started just writing young adult.
More and more needed, that's for sure.
And Dana, do you have a question for Vicki?
Yeah, Vicki, how did you develop your characters, and where does that inspiration come from? I'm wondering, since you wrote children's books, was it kind of a natural progression of your characters sort of growing up?
You know what? And a lot of my characters are based off of just the people I know and people I see in my everyday life. And characters are also based off not only people, but I know this is going to sound funny, but things. I can look at a mountain and it will remind me of a person, but then there's aspects of that mountain, the characteristics that become characteristics of people. Does that make sense?
Excellent. Yeah, that's fabulous. Never heard anyone say that before.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Vicki, I'm just curious, you were published by a traditional publisher?
Yes, I have actually two traditional publishers. My new book coming out is with a new publisher, and then the Dusk Chronicles and the children's books are with another publisher.
And how did you go about acquiring that publisher? I know you probably did query letters.
Lots of query letters, lots of rejection. I got my own little binder at home. I call it a little inconvenience. And I put all my rejection letters in there. And I just happened to have the one publisher. It's a small publisher out of Wisconsin that took a chance on my first children's book. Okay. And then after that, it took off.
Okay. And can you tell us a little more about your trilogy?
The Dusk Chronicles, which the first book, like I said, was Through the Door to Dusk, actually takes place in Las Vegas, up by Sunrise Mountain. I did get the inspiration from looking at the mountain. And it's basically about a boy, Noah, who's around 20, and he sees a horrific event. He sees a boy who just turns to dust and dies in the middle of the street one day. And he keeps going back to that area and consequently sees a group of kids that they're there and then they're not there. So basically the idea of the story is it's a town from 1899 that is trapped in a different dimension. And there's a demon, and the demon trapped them, and he has to go, and he falls in love with Emma, who is one of the young girls, and he has to save them, basically, and try to get them back to our time.
Okay. Do you have plans for future works?
Well, I do have a historical romance coming out next month, and then I just finished up a sci-fi young adult that takes place at State Line, and that's kind of in the editing process right now.
Great.
Wow.
And where can we learn more about your books?
Actually, I use my author page, my Facebook author page, so it's Vicki-Ann.bush.author on Facebook.
Okay. All right, thank you. And our next guest is Joyce Brennan. Joyce Brennan has written 7 books and currently has 3 on the market: The Hidden Journal, Don't Dance on My Heart, and Broken Promises. Misplaced is her latest book, due out in June 20th of this month. Yeah. She is an active member of the Las Vegas Romance Writers and the Las Vegas Valley Writers and the Henderson Writers Group, so you're a lot of groups you attend. She gives presentations on writing and hosts critique groups. Joyce resides in Las Vegas, Nevada, and with her husband Tom and their 2 Yorkies. All right, tell us a little more about Joyce Brennan and your books.
You know, I started writing short stories. I belong to a writing reading group, And the plan there was to write a short story every other week and then read it to the group. And it was, at the first, it was about 2,000 words. Now it's down to 600 words. One of my short stories had such a appeal to everyone, they said, why don't you expand it? Well, at that time, I had never written a book before, and I expanded that thing until it was 100,000 words. I told everything about everybody. I since took some writing classes online, and the reason I belong to all these different groups is because interaction with other authors is the best way to find out how to write. That and reading. So I read everything, thanks to Linda here. She has all sorts of genres that's associated with romance. So I had never read science fiction romance. I had never read steampunk or any of those types of things, but I do now. And I think when you read, then you can write. And I read, as I say, I read everything.
All right. What inspired you to be a writer, though? Was it just the writers' groups, or?
It was, as a child, I used to write plays in school. That was 100 years ago. But but it was when I moved to this one writers group where we wrote and we read that got me interested in really pursuing the writing.
Okay. And where can we learn more about your work?
My books are on Squibbed, on Smashwords, on Barnes & Noble. Tigere Publishing is my publisher. Amazon, at Content, and I just recently purchased a RWA Readers app, which will go out to readers of romance.
Wow, that's
so
cool.
that is an interesting thing. We'll see how that works.
Yeah. So you're published to a traditional publisher as well?
I am published with a traditional. I started out self-publishing strictly to see if what I wrote was going to be something that somebody wanted to read. And I would order enough books to cover the costs, and I always sold them out. So after I did that, I decided I would go with a traditional publisher.
So do you think that self-publishing helped you, with what knowledge you would need when it came to acquiring?
As long as you have realistic aspects of self-publishing. If you think for a minute that a self-publishing publisher is going to market your book or push your book or do anything for you, that's not going to happen. But if you go in with a thought, okay, I'm going to buy 500 books and that's it, and I'm going to sell the 500 books, and that works. That worked for me. As soon as I broke even on the profit, I would do the second book.
Well, I'm just curious, we're going to talk to Linda here in a minute. I'm just curious, though, Vicki, with both you and Joyce, how much marketing is involved in with what you're doing now through the traditional publisher?
Well, with the first publisher that I had, like I said, they were very small. So I did an awful lot of the marketing, and I do, like you say, Barnes and Noble, they're on Amazon and everything, but that doesn't mean just because they're in Barnes and Noble and Amazon, they're going to sell. Now, the second publisher I have now takes a more active role in the marketing. Okay. So I'm curious to see how the difference is going to be between the two publishers, actually.
Mm-hmm. And Joyce, what about you?
And I agree with Dana, because the publisher that's done my ebook has 100 different sites that they're putting this book on. Mm-hmm. Just because the book's there is no sign anybody's going to find it. You have to let people know where that book is. Right. And I use my Facebook fan page for that, and I use my blogs for that. Mm-hmm.
There is one thing I wanted to say real quick.
Okay,
because there's a lot of independent writers out there.
Correct.
Okay. One of the things I did notice is editing.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I really think that a good editor really makes a huge difference. And I'll notice, I'll have friends who are self-publishing, and you look at it and you have to say and be honest. You need to bring this to an editor. You know what I mean?
We agree.
And Dana, I know, Dana, you are there, right? Dana? Is Dana still online too? No? Okay. Well, one of the things I know for sure is that even if you have accomplished the English language well, and maybe that was even your study in college, you still should have an editor. You need someone to proof that. You're so close to the work, oftentimes you can't see little things. Or you may not even understand the structure. You may think in your mind it's reading one way, but in reality it's reading something different. So you do need that structure.
It's really important.
Yeah. You are listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, along with my co-host, Dana Micheli and Janet Coursey. Dana, if you're listening, please call back. On your computer, you can listen to the broadcast live at klav1230am.com. Our guests for today's show are Vicki-Ann Bush, Joyce Brennan, and Linda Cutler-Smith. Thank you. I got it right? Okay, good. Our third guest is Linda Cutler-Smith, and Linda leads a romance readers group. She has worked for Borders and Barnes & Noble's bookstores and has held workshops at regional romance conferences. She's a member of the Romance Writers of America and a big supporter of the romance genre. So, Jan, you have any questions for Linda?
I love the sound of this already, but tell me, why romance?
Why not?
Yeah, I know.
In this world that we live in, I find that a happily ever after or a satisfying ending is something we don't always have in our real lives. But the rules of romance and all the different genres will say, have a satisfying ending. There's always the hero, the heroine, the problem, the way of solving it, and hopefully they get together in one way or another at the end. And we're all in some sort of relationship or another in our lives and throughout our lives, which is why there is young adult romance, there is mature romance, there is police procedural romance, believe it or not, romantic suspense, contemporary and historical. A very important thing that people don't realize is that romance novels and stories make up the largest percent of sales in the United States of books, ebooks, and self-pub books. And it's been so for more than 10 years now.
I can understand that. And we had Stephen Murray on not too long ago, and he was told, write a romance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because Stephen, he never had any idea he was ever going to write anything. And then when he wrote this book, it was a romance novel. So it wasn't something he planned.
A lot of authors have said to me, and I do believe it, is that their characters start talking to them as they're writing, saying, I wouldn't do that, but I'd do this. And I think call it inspiration, call it anything you want, but it is absolutely true. And if people find that they're very comfortable writing romance, why not? I mean, you have people who have been writing traditional mysteries for years who all of a sudden decide they're going to write a romance. You find the opposite way. It's all part of writing, and believe me, there is an audience out there for just about anything you can imagine when it comes to romance.
Have you ever considered writing your own book?
I have. I've done a lot of online reviews. I've done articles online and in print regarding the writing and the reading of romance. I have thought of one or two ideas for a book. I just have to have enough time in my life to carve out to actually sit down and do it. But I am surrounded by people such as Joyce. I'm surrounded by people who are so talented. It's more fun to appreciate, read it, and try and spread the gospel about romance reading and romance writing.
So what are you hoping to accomplish with the writers group? I know you've had it for a while.
I've had a writers group for over 15 years. It's kind of like getting together and being able to talk about something you really like that you may not be able to talk to your husband or your other friends about, or your wife. There are male authors of romance, and they are quite successful. And we have also found that we will read not only romance books, but things that are called women's fiction, or just a good story which may have romantic elements in it. Mysteries many times are more mysteries than romances, but there is a subgenre. Lisa Jackson is probably one of the most famous, who writes romantic suspense novels.
Okay, well, we're going to move into the next part of the show. You're listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, here on KLAV, and my co-host today is Janet Coursey. We're hoping Dana will call us back. Our guests for today's show are Vicki-Ann Bush, Joyce Brennan, and Linda Cutler-Smith. We're going to be talking about getting your book in stores, and we're all going to have different opinions. So we're going to read quotes, and then we're going to discuss them. How difficult is it to get your books in the big stores? And I'm going to ask Joyce and Vicki, because I know you, and actually, Lydia, you could answer this as well. You worked for the big stores. So ladies, give me your opinion on how difficult you think it is to get the books in the big stores.
It's like pulling teeth. It's really difficult. You know, the bookstores have 100,000 authors. If you want space on their shelves for your book, you had better prove to them that you're going to sell these books, or you're going to send people into that store to look at those books, or you're going to cause a reaction with those books.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was one of the most difficult things to do, was to get the book on the shelf in like Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right?
And I had a friend who actually helped me get one in Texas and took pictures, and I was like, yay!
Well, I think the misnomer is that if you're published even through a traditional author, that your book's going to be carried nationwide, and that isn't true. You know, even if you're carried through a major publishing house, you have to have publicity planned, and it has to be, if you're going to go nationwide, it has to be nationwide publicity, and it has to be something that's timed according to with when you're going to be doing your book signing. I had a friend who had a book come out in the late 90s, and she, at that time, we didn't have the internet ebooks, and the internet wasn't set up the way it is now, where you could go online and buy the books. But you still had your websites, and you know, you would have a counter, so you know how many hits you had a day. And she had gone on Maury Povich to pitch her book, and the problem was that she was with a distributor, and it was supposed to go nationwide with Borders, I believe. And the problem was that she went on Maury Povich before the books hit the store. And the problem with that is that when someone hears it and they're intrigued by what the book is, they may go into the store at the counter, and I believe, Linda, you can back me up on this. If it's not in your system, you're going to say, we don't carry that book. And that's what happened to her. Every store someone went into, obviously they probably told them, we don't carry that book. Now, she had over 1 million hits on her website. That's the sad thing. So it was a week before those books were ever put into the store. Probably by the time a week was over, people gave up of even asking about this book being in someone's store. She couldn't figure out why she wasn't getting any sales, and then when she called the distributor, that's when she found out they were distributed late. Now, she didn't know anything about this business, which was what we're talking about right now. So now she gets to go on Howard Stern. 3 months had passed. 3 months in a store, if there's no sales, they pull your book off the shelves. Am I not right, Linda?
Yes.
They send them back to the distributor. So just a few days after they had pulled the books off the shelves, which she did not know, she went on Howard Stern's show and also had over 1 million hits from that appearance. So the problem is that when you're planning, you know, to put your books in a store, even if it's on a local level, you also have to plan your publicity around that. You know, make sure you're on the radio show about the time your book's going to be available. So you're not just, you know, you're not doing one thing and not the other. They both have to coincide. You have to make sure you've got your publicity as well as your signings lined up at the same time. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. I just wanted to say a lot of writers are not business people.
Right.
One must do one's homework, or talk to someone, or even hire someone who does have the business savvy.
Right.
It's critical, because you can be a fantastic writer, but as you said with the timing, you can be a fantastic writer whose book sits in your drawer.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't do any good to get it published if you can't do anything with it. Now, we need to be realistic as well. And Joyce, you spoke a little bit on this as when you self-publish. You know, the average self-published author sells between 100 and 200 books, and that's just being realistic. If you work hard at it, there are successful authors out there that self-published. But, you know, it takes a lot of work, and it's like Linda said, you have to become a business person at one point. You have to figure out, what angle can I, you know, who do I need to approach to get this book? Who is my audience? You know, all that's very important. Linda, can you give us an idea of the tricks of the trade when it comes to getting your books in the stores, just for signings?
Tricks of the trade. First of all, you will have a formidable wall in front of you when you attempt to go to a large bookstore. Unless you have a community relations person at that store or at that in that city who is a friend of romance. You have to start at the local level by making contact with people and at the store, finding out if there is a community relations person, if there's a person who's particularly interested in romance. Romance is part of popular fiction, which includes westerns and mysteries as well. And a lot of stores welcome discussions on that, especially during certain promotions during the year, such as Mother's Day, which just passed, which would have been a terrific romance book promotion. You have to make contact with these people. And if someone says no, don't stop there. Ask if someone else is familiar with something like that. Getting into a large bookstore, if you're lucky enough to do it, is just step one. They may give you a folding table and a seat, and that's it. You have to make sure that you have someone there who's announcing you'll be appearing there. You have to do your own promotion. And you have to have a plan, and you will have to have little bookmarks or some sort of catch that you can give to people who stop by. A lot of people are afraid to stop by. It's self-promoting, and you can't be shy when you're a writer unless you're someone who has already sold 10 million books. And that doesn't happen very often. If you have a book that's self-published, you have to check and see if there's actual bookshops will want you. Some
right.
do not. And you have to find that out. And again, when someone says no, you ask if these people who are in the book business know of other places where someone may be more amenable or is even permitted to have something like this. There are things that you have to do before your book is out. Get promotional materials. And you can find this online, and you can also find it through the romancewritersofamerica.org website. They have online courses, and they have practical hints and help for you. Continue promoting your book and make sure it's available. You know, as James just said earlier, you will have a real problem if you're making speeches, you're appearing at different book groups, church groups, ladies groups, and yes, retirement homes, and you have nothing to sell. These people want to have it. At least have bookmarks, perhaps, and some other short segments of your first chapter available so people can get hooked. That way, if you're handing something material out to them, and yes, there is a snafu and it's not available that minute, you have given that person something to remember, to put on a bulletin board, or to even stick in their iPhone so that they'll look in another week and see if it's available.
Right. And I think one of the things I've talked about on the show before is how important it is to have a website that someone can go to about you. Because usually on your websites, you're going to list where that book's available or when it's available. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to read some few quotes here from WikiHow. According to WikiHow, if you are one of the many authors who have self-published a book and you want to get a book into the stores, have a plan and persevere. Here are a few steps that might help. And the key word there, by the way, is persevere. You know, you mentioned earlier, Vicki, how you have a lot of rejection slips, and that's going to happen even when you go to try to get your books in the stores instead of book signings. People are going to tell you no, and you just have to keep asking. Start promoting your book before contacting bookstores to show that you are serious. Then continue promoting and directing potential customers to the stores that are willing to stock your book. Tim, is Dana still on? Dana, are you back online?
I'm sorry, you guys. I lost all power. I lost all service on my phone.
Oh, wow.
So
Well,
I'm back.
we lost communications with YouTube as well, so...
Wow.
Yeah. So, Dana, would you like to... We're on page 6 of the script, if you'd like.
Yes,
Okay.
I see.
All right.
Create a website or blog for your book. Create a press kit. These are both huge things. Describe the book and provide contact information where people can reach you. Include only the most influential or glowing reviews. Leave out irrelevant information such as your personal resume. You have about 60 seconds to make an impression with it, so make sure your strongest selling points are on the first page.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on this?
No, but she hit it straight on. That's exactly what you have to do. You have to promote before your book comes out, and you have to approach people and say, my book is coming out X number of days, and what can I do to get my book in your store?
Right. And, you know, one of the things one thing that was important here is to us says you have about 60 seconds to make an impression. We're not going to go into too much of that today, but one of the things I always tell new authors is set up a funding site. It's a way of promoting your book. It's one of the best tools to promote your book, whether you need the funds to help get it started or not. It just lets people know about it. And one of the things they tell you on that is make no more than a 60 to 120 second commercial. One or two, I say commercial, but it's an introduction to yourself, who you are. And it's because we have an attention span of about 2 minutes, when it comes to reading something, as far as ads go. So that's the reason for that. Joyce, would you like to take the next segment?
Send the press releases to the local newspapers and bookstores, and find out exactly who you're going to send these to. Don't just say, "Dear sirs." Do some homework. Find out who's in charge, who do you want to talk to, and make phone calls and find out exactly what they're looking for and how you can get into their bookstore and their newspapers. It's just like pitching your book to a publisher. You have to pitch your book to the bookstores.
Mm-hmm. Well, including with these press releases, it goes back to a little bit about what we were talking about. Make sure your book's available. Before you do a press release that you're releasing this book for purchase, you have to make sure that it's available, and not just to your audience, like you may be good doing one book signing, but when you send a press release out to the stores or wherever, you've got to make sure they can order that online, through a distributor or whomever, unless you have a deal with them for consignment. And Linda?
Advertising in local publications is great, but please also go online to your Facebook author page or to any literary group that you are a member of or would like to be a member of. I'm very conscious of the fact that people will talk about their book, but I already know about their book. Others don't. And if you do have a website, put in the first 5 pages of your book, the first chapter of your book. That's a good hook for people. And anyone under the age of 40 is going to be walking around with an iPhone or other communications device and don't want to bother having to read it in the old-fashioned way that I still prefer. If you have a contact person at any bookstore, let them know you're marketing for the book locally, and let them know you are available to speak there as well, other than just pushing your book. If you have a certain subject matter that piques the interest of people, talk about the subject matter, because you can bring the book in right at the beginning as well. And you can put an available in future ads if the bookstores are willing to accept the book for sale. A lot of your national ones will not. However, the national ones will put up signs when you are speaking at the shops or conducting a little workshop, either on gardening, if your heroine is a gardener, or on guns and rifles if you're writing a book set during the Civil War.
Yeah. Okay. And Vicki-Ann?
Contact local TV and radio stations for interviews. It helps if you get the name of a contact person prior, so you're just not blowing in the wind.
Right.
And also if you know people who have contacts within the media, friends, talk to them, let them know, let them help you. You'd be surprised. It's just like that when I was telling you the one in Texas. That was a friend of my daughter who has a job at Barnes & Noble in Texas.
Right.
And I contacted him through Facebook, and he was the one who ordered my books and got them on the shelf there. So don't be afraid to utilize the people around you, because you'd be surprised how they can help get the word out.
And, I think that's one of the most difficult things there is to promoting your book, too, is getting it on the local television. Radio, not so much. I mean, you inquire about being on the radio, and I know I get quite a few inquiries, and I would have to say the majority of the people that I always do a theme for my show, so I'm looking for specific authors for that theme. But I usually bring the authors to my show, maybe 6 months down the road, but but contact the radio stations. That's probably one of the best things for talk shows. But TV is a little different. Even on the morning shows, it's very difficult to get, and there you almost have to have a contact.
Yeah. Very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
It's been. Yeah.
But don't give up. Take your books. I take books to the stations themselves, the local stations, and
make use of social media whenever possible, especially if you are someone over the age of 40 and are not familiar. Get your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors to help you with that, because so many people use that almost exclusively. And it is a very new, modern way to show, I'm out there, I'm using this, come read about me. come read my books.
Well, you're listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, here on KLAV in Las Vegas, 12:30 a.m. on the dial. You can also listen to the show live at KLAV1230am.com. Jan, I believe you have a...
You know, this show is being very interesting because it really builds confidence in us as well, because these young ladies have all gone out there and really jumped in headlong right into the middle of it. I love this. So I have to offer to hold authors reading at libraries and writing conferences to increase your visibility. Get out there.
Linda, that's what you do for authors, you know.
Yes, I have to say, since I've been in various book groups on the East Coast and here, and in for-profit venues such as bookstores, and now I'm at the Sahara West branch of the Las Vegas Library, I welcome authors to contact me, and I welcome authors to talk about their books. Remember, my group is a group of readers, people who want to go out and buy books, not just other authors who want to see what the competition may be or could be. And people who read books and e-books, any books, you know, directly into your brain, I don't care. They love books. And whether you're 12 or you're 92, people love a good romance, and that's why there's so many good genres.
And I think you just hit on something very key, especially when it comes to the social networking. A lot of people aren't aware that, like on Facebook and even Google+, you have a niche there for people who read certain genres of you know, like romance or science fiction. So you need to go to those clubs because, it's like Linda said, they may not necessarily be writers. They may be people who are just interested in that topic and see what you have out there. So go there and advertise your book. Let people know it's available and where they can pick it up online, or, you know, if it's not local.
Yeah, many of my group, of which I'm very proud to say Joyce is a member of, the Desert Hearts Reading Group, which meets on the fourth Sunday of each month at 2:00 at the Sahara West Library. Plug. Many of them have brought books, titles, authors into meetings, books that we never, you know, I perhaps would never have read. Yet I have learned and found some incredible novels through what someone else recommended. Very, very important. Word of mouth is critical too.
Yes, and I think that's what's important. I always tell someone who's doing a book signing, you know, we hand out, and you mentioned this earlier, we hand out the bookmarks. And on those bookmarks, we create the Q codes. So you've got 3 or 4 Q codes on there to go to the Facebook page, that go to the ebook page, that go to, you know, the Amazon where you can buy the paperback. And so even if someone isn't going to be buying something when they're going into the store, I actually would I've gotten to where I stand out front now when someone's doing a signing that I know, and I'll hand out those bookmarkers to people as they're going in the store. Last one I did, I had a lady who went into the store. She took the bookmarker. She went into the store. She obviously had an intention on buying certain books. She went in there, bought 3 books, left, said goodbye as she was leaving, went to her car. She looked at the bookmarker, came back to me and said, "Thank you so much for giving me that bookmarker. This looks really interesting." And she went in and bought that book from the author. Wow. So anything you can hand out, like Linda said, is so important, whether it's just a little business card about the book or a bookmarker or a flyer. You know, it's really relevant to what you're trying to accomplish here, because they may not buy the book that day on the spot, but they may look at that or go home and look on the computer and say, "Hey, that's interesting," and buy it that way. Right. Create flyers containing information about your book. Include the ISBN and brief synopsis. Leave the flyers on public bulletin boards to create local interest. Enlist your network. Ask your friends, neighbors, family, and coworkers to request the book at the local stores. This, I cannot tell you enough, is important. If you know someone who wants to buy your book, and you know you're doing a book signing in 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, or your book's already available at one of the local stores, it's to your best interest to have them go to that store and buy the book as opposed to purchasing it from you. Yes, you would probably make more because now you're the one who's retailing it, and you're making more because you only paid wholesale. But at the same time, you want the stores to carry your book. So if you've got them going into the bookstore to buy your book, the bookstore's going, "Hey, this book's selling." There's an interest in them keeping your book on the shelf. But if you continually sell those books yourself, you're getting nowhere. Yeah, you're making a little extra cash now, but I think, was it Joyce that mentioned you can sell 200 or 300 books that way? But what after that? You know, you need
That's
to get
right.
the attention of the stores.
I also recommend before you try and put your book in that store, if you can talk to someone at the store and ask permission to put out bookmarks. Some stores, and I have been in stores, will not put out any bookmarks. So if you go in there and attempt to put out bookmarks without getting permission, they throw them away.
Sure.
However, I know that our library system is very, very welcoming. At least the Sahara West branch, I have to give them props. They're wonderful. The Sahara Library is very positive about distributing your bookmarks. And that really is a good come on to the people, because the library system have their own large bookmarks in different genres. And you can also piggyback onto that and promote yourself, and it doesn't cost anything except a phone call to ask permission and get the information.
And Joyce, did you have something to add to that?
No, only that getting your name out there, no matter how you do it, is how you're going to sell the books. You're just really going to have to push and push and push. And sometimes it's not the most pleasant thing in the world to go there, but I find speaking to groups is the best way I have to promote my books.
We had a gentleman on. I know Dana and Jen are going to remember this guy. He was on, and he had a romance novel that he was pushing, and he actually would go online to dating sites.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I remember him very well.
And he promoted his book through the dating sites. But hey,
which is brilliant. I mean, I thought that was brilliant.
I would never have thought of that. But, he said he was selling books, so that's the good thing. Dana, did you want to take the next one?
Sure. Ask the store to order your book from their distributors. If your book is available from national distributors such as Ingram or Baker and Taylor, the bookstore can order directly from the distributor and may be willing to do so just from a phone call. Taking books one at a time on consignment from the author, on the other hand, is much more time-consuming and thus less profitable for bookstores than going to an established distributor, which automates reordering, returns, and payments.
Right. Glenda?
A lot of bookstores will only buy from Baker and Taylor and Ingram.
Correct.
Again, this is what you can find out through a telephone call. It's very important. Like I said, I can't emphasize enough. Just do your homework.
Right.
Or find someone who knows how to do it.
Right. And it is important that if you need to set up some kind of distribution, you can still sell yourself. I mean, I highly recommend that you do that, that you still go do your book signings like Linda had mentioned, at the retirement communities, at the libraries. You still want to do that. You want to get out there in the public to let people know who you are. But at the same time, this big stores, some of them won't even let you do a signing unless they can order that book online. So you're dead in the water with the stores. And I've had people tell me, I've had a few authors say, I don't want to be bothered with book signings. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Because for every person who purchases it, let's just say only 5 people buy your book at a signing. You think, I sat here for 2 hours and I only sold 5 books. But now you've got 5 people who might read that book and like it. And if they like that book, they're going to tell 10 other people. So you've just told 50 people about that book.
Yep.
So book signings are very important.
And they're also going to look for your next book then.
Correct.
And from the business standpoint, if you are selling books at an established bookstore, that's going to go on your book sales record,
Right.
whether it be on a bestseller list, an extended list, or any other list you may want to be part of. If you're just hand selling it yourself independently, it doesn't go on any list as a book sold.
Right. So that's very important. Joyce, would you like to read the next statement?
If they aren't interested in stocking physical copies, or even if they are, in addition to the print copies, ask about opportunities to promote the ebook version. And this is what I'm pursuing now, because my Tiger Publishing is an ebook publisher.
Okay.
They will do print books if your book sells remarkably well.
Okay.
But and I really didn't realize until I read your information that the bookstores would do ebooks. So it's something
yeah.
I'm really going to pursue. Through a partnership between American Booksellers Association and the local independent bookstores, and Kobo, bookstores can sell ebooks and earn a percentage of all device and ebook sales.
Right. I always recommend that you sign up. Always get your book in ebook format. Have it on Kindle or Book Nook. You really need to have it available because ebooks really. We've talked about Amanda Hawking on this show before, and this woman, she was like 17, I think, when she published her first ebook, and in 3-4 short years, this woman averages 2,000 book sales a day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now it's ebooks, but the point is, think about how many books that is a month. She makes well over $200,000 a month off of the ebooks. Sit at home, write your books, put them on the computer, and make $200,000 a month. Not bad.
No.
They're also online a lot longer than your physical books from some publishers such as Harlequin, which give your books a 6-week life, and then they'll pull the book.
Yeah. And that's the other thing we need to talk about is that, there is a misnomer that a traditional publisher does all these things for you. And when you're an unknown author, there's a difference in self-publishing and traditional publishing in that you do have a traditional publisher and they do help you with some promotion, but you really have to work hard to make that happen.
Yes, you do.
And if you don't prove yourself, they're going to move on to someone else. So self-publishing, you do have a longer shelf life in the sense that you're controlling it and you're going out there and putting it up and you can revise it. But it's a lot of work. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a lot of work.
But it's a lot of fun work that you have to do to get your book out there.
Yes, it can be.
I have a ball when I go out on a book signing and radio shows and such.
I love book signings. I
Yeah.
know it's funny, but I get all excited. I do. I have so much fun because I like to talk to the people who come up.
Yeah.
And I love doing the radio shows. It's been fun doing that too.
And that's part of what gets your book out there too, because if you're enjoying it and the person buying your book sees that you're enjoying it, it's almost like when you go to a restaurant. They say 50% of whether you enjoy a meal is in presentation. It's the same way with a book. They may forget a few of the nuances of the book if they like you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you want. You want to sell yourself so that they're going, I like this guy. I like this book. So that it's very important to establish that rapport with an audience. Linda, would you like to read the rest of that?
Well, it's crucial that you identify the contact person at any and all bookstores that you contact. If you're distributing your book yourself, call the bookstore and ask who handles their consignment. I would also suggest go online and ask them as well, because almost everyone in management at bookshops look through communications on a daily basis and ask who handles the consignment and or local author books. You can start with the chain stores to work with the process, and then go to independent bookshops, which are more likely to have a local author section. If you are a local author, the bookstore will most likely accept your book as a community service than if you're some distant author who will not be doing local promotions. Ask if you can make an appointment to come in and show them the book. Preparedness is very, very crucial because these people have very busy lives in all different aspects. So make an appointment, be on time, be prepared, and have a list of questions for them too.
Well, one thing I can tell you right now is if you go into a store unprepared, they're not going to listen to you. Secondly, you can go into a store and you need to always ask for the events coordinator if they have one. And if you go in and you don't have an appointment, they don't have set hours a lot of times. So you're going in there and you've wasted your time because they may not even be there. Right. Or they may be busy with another client or something and don't have the time to spend with you.
Right.
So you really do need to call in advance and have an appointment. Jan, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just going to say that it's very important that they know you're serious about what you want to do, so you will call to make that appointment.
Right. And the other thing is do what we talked about earlier. Take advantage of someone who knows someone. If you know someone who knows someone in a store, use that person to help get your book in that store. That's so important because you don't want to take the chance that they're going to reject what you've done. If you've got someone they know and they work well with, maybe they'll take the book anyway. Right. Give it a try.
Also, what Linda said about using that you're a local author, because that has been my foot in the door so many times. They just seem to respond well to the fact that you're from the community, and in fact, they've always said that they want to help the community, they want to help the people in the community. You're one of the people that are in that community.
Right.
So that's a good point.
And Vicki, would you like to?
Yeah, be professional and respectful. Like we were just talking, try to make an appointment. That's the best way to do, because then you're showing respect to them for their time.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's very
Absolutely.
important.
Well, we got cut off a while ago with Dana. And Dana, I want to go ahead and do your 2 cents worth. Dana has worked with Writers in the Sky, by the way. WritersInTheSky.com is a full editorial service. Dana, would you like to do your 2 cents worth?
Yeah, I feel like, everything here is absolutely true. I would say if you possibly can, swing it, it is good to at least engage some sort of publishing professional, marketing professional, someone that has contacts, someone that can even open doors for you. If you could totally do it without someone, but it does take some of the weight off of you. I was just speaking with a client the other day who, the person that she's working with has opened up a lot of doors for her in terms of radio and stuff like that. And also about what we were saying about the ebook sales. I've noticed that even traditionally published authors who are now shifting to self-publishing are hanging on to those ebook rights.
Correct.
Because that seems to be where the money is going. So, even the most famous authors that are now, working with self-publishers, they're keeping those ebook rights because they know that that's the future. So that was something I thought was important to say.
And Danny, you just said something that was really important and key as well. I have an author that I know pretty well, Morgan St. James. And Morgan actually published through a traditional publisher originally. She had several books. She and her sister have a series. Mm-hmm. And her last 2 books, she decided to self-publish. To maintain control of those. Now, she went back to her traditional, she has a publisher as well, but she still self-publishes on the site. Because sometimes you can revise a book from the past, even if the publisher's dropped it. You can revise that book and bring it back out yourself. And so it's important that, you try and, oh, really? So you did that, Joyce.
Right. This was the first book, The Hidden Journal was the first book I wrote, what was called Love Undecided. And I refined it. I learned a lot about writing when I wrote my first book. I cut out a lot of the extra scenes and extra little things and compacted it and then made it as an ebook.
All right.
I learned all about throwing that baby out with the bathwater.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time here, so we're down to the last couple minutes of the show. And I'd like to thank my guests, Vicki-Ann Bush, Joyce Brennan, and Linda Cutler-Smith, along with my co-hosts Janet Coursey and Jana Micheli. Our next live broadcast will be Tuesday, June 3rd at 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. For our future guest lineup, please visit our website at aspectsofwriting.com. Aspects of Writing broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time here on KLAV, 1230 on your AM dial locally. And on your computer, you can listen to this broadcast live at KLAV1230am.com. This show will rebroadcast on VegasAllNetRadio.com every Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. That's every week. Please visit the website to view our date and time. Our past shows are also archived on Vegas Allnet Radio on that page. And to review the recorded version of the show, except for today, because we lost our contact with YouTube, but I think Destiny was able to pull up the last part of it, so we'll have some of it on there. Just go to youtube.com/aspects of writing on your computer, and all of our past shows are logged on there. This show will be posted immediately after the broadcast, what we have of it. Until next time, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it. Thank you, everyone, for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On KKLAV. Your host, James Kelly, will bring you an informative look at every aspect of the writing industry. Guests on the show will share their experience and what inspired them to write. Together, we will explore every aspect of writing, including how to create, format, and sell your work. So join us for Aspects of Writing right here on KLAV.